Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Rowe. I'm with the Public Affairs Office in the New Orleans District. We're going to get started with the meeting tonight. I just wanted to let you know we are doing a simulcast on WebEx as well. So you may hear me chime in if there's any questions or comments from WebEx. The speaker for that is over here, so if you have any questions or comments in the room, please be loud enough so the folks on WebEx can hear them, and if not, we can repeat it as well. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. So anything else?
Hi everybody, my name is Heather Briscoe. I know I saw a lot of you at one shot, so you're going to be hearing the same presentation with a different speaker. I am a project manager for the Morganza to the Gulf of Mexico project, the Corps of Engineers. This is an environmental justice outreach meeting, and go ahead and get started. So, agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about why we're here and why we're having this conversation, and then I'm going to talk to you guys about the purpose of the Morganza to the Gulf project. We're going to look at it from a high-level overview, and then we're going to dive deeper into some specific projects that are going to be ongoing in the coming years. So, meeting objective, I believe that's wrong.
Hey everyone, like Heather has a lot of questions earlier, talking about regular investigation. Geologist is also the district currently is. This meeting was sent out of the meeting that the Army Corps had between the Coastal Protection Restoration Authorities and the Governor's Office of Coastal Activities with the coastal indigenous communities in urban. The tribe that represented there were folks all over Dulac, all the way east to Blackman's Parish, and to the Biloxi, Choctaw, Jamacha, the Point of Shannon, and there's like all those. Then right about the village. And they had a lot of questions about the project, Morganza, both big and small. And that was really the catalyst for us to have this first meeting to inform the public, but specifically the folks who are in the EJ. So today we're going to be talking about the project that we know at this point, talk about the different chunks of outreach, A, not just what I will be talking about. And this will be the first of many meetings to come. So without further ado, I think we're introducing Andrew Perez, who will be online.
Hey Brian, thank you. Yeah, this is Andrew Perez. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Very good. I'm an environmental justice specialist at the New Orleans District for the Corps of Engineers. I work along with Juanita Kendrick, who's also EJ specialist, mostly working in the area of community engagement. She's the one who you may have communicated with in hearing about this meeting. There are 3 executive orders that relate directly with environmental justice that I would be remiss to not mention and kind of describe what environmental justice is before I get into these orders. Most of you may already know it's the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. This goal will be achieved when everyone has the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards and equal access to the decision-making process. So the goal is to bring in those communities that are disadvantaged or maybe low income or minority, sort of bring them into the conversation about the project, about what we're doing, the federal action. In this case is the flood risk management project from Morganza to the Gulf. It's the levee. So the orders all relate to trying to achieve that goal of engagement and making sure environmental justice areas are included in the decision-making process. So the first one was signed by Bill Clinton in 1994. That's Executive Order 12898. And it directs federal agencies to look at minority and low-income populations We call those areas of EJ concern, and make sure that our projects don't disproportionately impact these areas. So in this case, there's our putting up our levy, the levy, and the impacts, adverse and benefits, do they disproportionately affect, or mostly the adverse impacts, disproportionately affect areas of EJ concern. So we try to make sure that that does not happen. And if it does, we need to mitigate those impacts. The second executive order and the third, that's EO 14008 and 14096, both were signed by President Biden. The first one, 14008 in 2021, and the latter, 14096, very recently, in April of this year. He made it a priority, one of his priorities in his administration to try to focus on environmental justice. You may have heard about some of this in the news. So the first one, 14008, introduces sort of the identifying economic benefits from our projects that we build and how the areas of EJ concern, the disadvantaged communities and other areas, are impacted beneficially by our project. And in that executive order 14008, there's a section, really it goes from section 219 through 223 that talks about environmental justice. It's a broad executive order. It's tackling the climate crisis at home and abroad is the name of it. But embedded in the executive order is these sections for EJ. And the Justice 40 initiative is introduced in those sections of this executive order, which kind of directs the federal agencies to try to meet the goal that 40% of our project benefits go to disadvantaged communities. So a project benefit in the case of a flood risk management project is a benefit is a damage that is reduced. So a flood damage that might be taking place, a house gets damaged, and then when we put this levee up, then that's no longer happening, no more damages to that structure. So that's the benefit we speak of. And then the third one that I mentioned, 14096, again was Biden, President Biden signed that one in April. And the directs federal agencies to try to work together, do a whole government approach to solving some of the environmental justice issues, to ensure environmental justice. So if we're doing something at the core that we can't quite achieve that, then this executive order directs us to work with other governments to try to get it done. And it supplements the other executive orders that we just talked about. So we're going to be preparing an EJ assessment in the environmental document that's associated with this project that sort of describes how these areas of EJ concern are being affected by the project. In this case, and we're going to get into the project in a second, how they beneficially are affected and adversely impacted. And of course, on all three of these executive orders, outreach, EJ public outreach is stressed, and it's directs federal agencies to undertake these meetings to inform the communities, but also to hear from the communities on what they think about what we're doing. So feedback from residents is critical to the process. So I'm going to now turn it over to, I think it's Heather, on project purpose.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Really appreciate you walking us through that. So I'm going to get into the projects. For those of you who just joined us, my name is Heather Briscoe. I'm a project manager with the Corps of Engineers for the Morganza to the Gulf project. So the first thing I want to say is the purpose, obviously. So we're going to do a high-level overview of the overall project, and then we're going to talk about some of the projects that are coming up, the construction projects that are coming in the next couple of years. So the main goal of this project is to reduce the risk of flooding to the communities of Terrebonne and Lake Sturgeon. And as most of you in this room are aware, this project has been ongoing for a very long time. It's been coming for a long time. our study for this project started in 1992. And as you may not be aware, all government projects start with a study. We start taking a look at everything from where we're going to put it, to the benefits, the costs. And then we take it to Congress and say, hey, I think this is good. The benefits outweigh the risks. Let's move forward with this. So we got our first authorization in 2007 for construction. Unfortunately, right after that, we were told, all right, well, the standards for levies have changed. We need you to go back to your plans and redo those because of Katrina. And the standards for levies adjusted after that, and we were told that we needed to incorporate that into all of our plans. So we went back, took a look at everything. We got reauthorized in 2014, which led to our project partnership agreement, which is a document that we sign with our local sponsors because all federal projects have to have a local component to it. And we have the fortunate ability to be paired with the most amazing local sponsors. They have done so much work already. It's actually unprecedented for a local sponsor to put so much time and money into the project prior to us coming in and helping out. So we're working with CPRA, the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, and then Terra Millennium Conservation District. We also just call that Reggie. We like to work with them. We're also working with the North and South and Fish Levy districts as well for some other aspects of the projects that aren't coming up just now. The two that we're going to talk about are REACH A and REACH F. Both of these are under the Terra Levy and Conservation. Alright, so this is one of the pictures that I like the most, the maps that I really like from the core that I've seen since I've started with them. Because it gives you a really good holistic view of all of the systems in southern Louisiana, not just Morganza to the Gulf. But it also shows you how important the Morganza to the Gulf system is going to be once it is completed. So Morganza, it's kind of hard to see in color, but it's down here around the wall, down here. And you can see we got all these systems over here, a few systems around New Orleans, and we got this big old gray space all the way up here. And Morganza to the Gulf is going to plug that gap right there. So not only are we going to be providing the risk reduction for the people of Houma, Terrebonne, Lafourche, we are actually going to be providing risk reduction, flood risk reduction, for this entire space line and all the way up to Morganza. And a lot of people ask me when I'm doing a project around Houma, why is it called Morganza to the Gulf of Mexico if it's down at home? And the reason of that is because we are actually providing flood risk reduction all the way up to Houma. And originally, we were planning on putting a levee system that went all the way up there. But through the study process that we talked about, they realized that by putting the system in down here, they would be giving just as much benefit to the people up north as they are down here. But the name's so we are still Morganza to the Gulf, although the system is down here around. So now we're going to get into the project specific. So this is a very busy map, but it provides lots of information. And I'm going to walk you through that so you can understand what you're looking at. I also want to point out that we have two physical versions of this map. They're a little outdated. You're going to see some yellow on here that you don't see on here. This is a more up-to-date one. But in case you want to take a closer look, they have all of the structures, all of the regions, so you can take a look at those in person when we're done. So on this map, you see a lot of green and red. So the green and red is where the levee's going. That's our current plan for the levee system. And you can see there's a lot more green on this map than red, which is amazing because our local sponsors, who are incredible, have put in $1 billion worth of money to build 80 miles of levee already. They're at about the 6 to 7 foot range, and by the end of the federal aspect of all of this work, we're going to be getting up into the 15 to 20 foot elevation. So we're getting there, but we have some form of flood risk reduction along this entire length of green, up here and then up here. Obviously, we have two red zones. We got this one, we call this one REACH A, and we're going to be getting into that one in a little bit. We also have Lockport to the Rose, which wasn't originally included in the levee system back in 2007 when we got that original authorization from Congress. We actually added that in. So we're going to be, we're currently working on getting some design on that one too, but that one, the construction, it's not upcoming in the coming years. So we're going to talk about Reach A, which is right here, and then we'll also talk about Reach F, which is down here in this area. Those are the two that will be having construction in the next, we plan to initiate construction next year or in 2025 for these two particular regions. The other thing just to point out on this map are all the bubbles that you can't read on. All of the bubbles indicate some form of structure that we're also doing. So the green and red are earthly bodies, and the bubbles all indicate a structure like a floodgate, or maybe it's a lock system, or we can't obviously put a great money over a road, so we might have a road gate there. There's lots of different types of structures, so we just wanted to get a picture, the full picture of everything that we as the Corps is working on for the Morganza goal. And this is just kind of a list showing you all of the things that we're working on. So although we're only going to talk about Reach A and Reach Out, we have a lot going on. So you can see we actually have construction ongoing at the Humboldt now. We'll get a second day there. We've got lots of features. So the other thing, in addition to needing authorization from Congress to say you can go and actually do the work, you also need them to give you money to do the work. You have to have both of those things in order to move forward. So lucky for us, we have money to do design and construction on this, a couple of levy features and a lot of structure features. We also have additional funds for the design aspects of all of these features over here. So these mean we can do the design and immediately run into construction as soon as that design is complete. For the design aspect over here, we are working on this design right now in conjunction with everything else. That way, when Congress says, okay, now we're going to give you money for those, we can move into those as quickly as possible. The last thing to point out down here is the environmental efforts. I don't think, so I worked in private sector before I started working for the Corps, and I do not understand the depth of the environmental aspects that we have to look into for all of our projects. So we're taking a look at quite a bit. We're looking at wetland impacts. We have archaeologists on staff who take a look at historic and prehistoric cultural resources to make sure that we are preserving and not impacting those. We take a look at the pipeline infrastructures, if there's any hazardous waste potential in certain areas, and we take all of that into consideration as we go through the design process. Okay. So, as Brian talked about earlier, the reason for this particular meeting was because we had some voiced concerns about construction and the borrow that's going to go along with these projects. So I want to be able to tell you all of the details that are going to be associated with the construction, but right now we're in the design phases, which means that we're still putting pen to paper and still understanding exactly how everything's going to go. So that's part of the environmental side of things. We're slightly adjusting this and slightly adjusting that. The engineers are still participating on that. So unfortunately, we don't have those details on construction, but this is not going to be our last conversation. We're going to continue this conversation as we have more computations. But we also want to point out that although we know that construction is painful, no one enjoys it in their community. But we're all aiming for the end goal of providing risk reduction for this community. The other part that I know that some people have been asking about is the borrow, and how I wanted to explain the process, because I didn't understand how this process works either. So by borrow, I mean the material, the soil, the dirt that we actually need to have to construct all these earth levees. We're doing 98 miles worth of earth levees, and that's a lot of dirt that we need. So we have to figure out where all of that dirt is coming from. So we call that dirt borrow. So for the borrow, the first thing that we do is our engineers take a look at a whole bunch of maps, and they look at the geology of the maps, and they look at where the alignment, where this levee is supposed to be on. And the engineers say, all right, we need the soil, the geology to be of a specific type of composition. So these areas over here look great, but they're not very close to the alignment. The whole routes are going to be a lot. But these areas over here, same composition, but much closer. So they take a look at all of this information along the entire length of the levee, process in the entire area and trying to understand exactly where good soil might be for this particular purpose. From there, we send it over to our environmental people, and they started doing a whole lot of screening. They say, nope, that area that's wetlands, outside of that land. We look at the cultural resources, that's cemetery. We're not digging up a cemetery tomorrow. We take a look at all of the underground utility considerations, because we also don't want to be disturbing any pipelines out there, or the less relocating pipelines better. So we take a look at all of that, and this big area we've looked at that we said might be good for borrow, we're now shrinking it down a little bit. We brought it in. We're honing it in. The next step are investigations, because at this point, all we've done are look at all measurement maps. So now we need to go in the field, and we need to make sure that what we're seeing on the maps registers on the ground. We want to make sure, oh, this is wetlands. No, it's not wetlands. So this area over here we didn't think was wetlands actually is wetlands. So we need to include that in the we're not touching it tomorrow section. So again, we went from a large area, we honed it in a little bit more, we were finding a little bit more. And then before we actually make any final decisions, we will be having public comment period to bring this information to you, to continue this conversation with you, so that you understand where we're going, and so that we can get public feedback and have a conversation, because that's exactly what this conference is. All right, so now we are getting into the two projects that are coming up soon. We've got Reach A and Reach A. Reach A is this red section over here. I showed you before. It's just southwest of Houma there. So there's Houma, and this is the area of Reach A. Between these two white lines down here, this orange line is where the lighting is going to go. So Reach A is 9 miles. If you remember, this was one of the red sections. So this is a gap in the current system that's already been built on there. So we are pushing very hard to get construction out there as quickly as possible, so that we can go ahead and close that gap. So this is going to be one of the other first projects that we have out there. We've got a multi-now already going. This is going to be number 2. So we have it scheduled to get awarded in 2024. That means is we are going to be, we plan to have the construction awarded to a contractor in 2024. So that's next year. Usually it takes about 3 to 4 months once it's been awarded for construction to actually begin. So we're looking for that construction in the latter half, the last 6 months of 2024. That's what we're aiming for construction to start. And we're expecting it to last about 2.5 years. The work, this specific work is for, so here's our, the Gulf Coast, Intercoastal Waterways. The GIWW, that's what we always call it, so I sometimes stumble over the actual words. But here's the GIWW here. And we've actually split, you can see we got multiple contracts here. That means that we're doing it in a phased approach. So the first contract, the one that's going to be starting construction at the end of next year, is going to be the section south of the GIW down here. And our goal is to get 6 to 7 feet, which matches the lengths around it. So we have that continuous flood risk reduction in the area. From there, we're moving on to projects 2, 3, and 4. We don't have funding for that just yet, like I mentioned before. Congress has given us money to start work on that if we don't have that just yet. So we're focusing on that contract 1. We actually do have money to do the design work, so we are actually working on the design for contract 2 as well. But I'd say like 90% of our effort right now is on that contract 1 there. Last thing to point out is just that again, we have environmental considerations, and some of these must be completed prior to construction starting. So we are full steam ahead on that as well. Last little point down there is that for those of you who know this area well, you know that this area is the Mandalay National Wildlife Refuge, and I want to be very clear that we're in constant communication with them about the potential impact and trying to minimize that impact in that area with our system. So we are having conversations up to understand how we can work through this in the design process. And here is these are our possible borrow locations. I want to emphasize that possible. This is tentative. This is the big picture. We've gone through those first two steps where our engineers have taken a look at the geology, our environmentalists have taken a look and pared it down. Right now, we're in the field investigation stage. So we're starting to go out and take a look at these areas, and they're going to get much smaller. What you're seeing here far exceeds the needs, what we actually need to build this levee, because we know we're going to be paring it down even more. I also want to point out that this is the Reach A South. So it's south, here's the GIWW here. This is the alignment. These purple areas are the potential, the possible, the tentative borrow pits for these areas. And then the black dash line are our haul routes, as well as the barge haul routes appear on the GIWW. But if you'll remember, contract 1 was for Reach A South. So that means this area over here. This is what we're planning to start the construction on at the end of next year. This is where we're planning on doing our work. But eventually we will need 3.2 million cubic yards. It's a lot of dirt. So for contract 1, for just this area over here, we need 400,000 cubic yards. That's about, if we calculate it, it's about 15 acres, let's take this level. And then you have to get that volume. So that's where you get that cubic yards from. The 3.2 million, just so you're aware, is literally everything we would need to construct the entire thing. So not just 6 or 7 feet that we're doing down here, but all the way up to the 15 or 20 feet that we have to go for the entire length of Reach A. There, we're almost Reach us. This is our second section that we have construction coming up pretty soon. This one's scheduled to be awarded to the contractor in 2025. We don't actually have the funds for construction just yet, but we're getting there. We are expecting that to come very soon. So our plan is to start construction on there in the latter 2025. And construction is estimated to last about 2 to 3 years. We're doing one lift out there. When we get on this, the final portion is done. We'll get 15 and a half feet out here. And we're able to do all of this out on less because our non-water responses have already done some lifts out there, specifically the capital portion. So Reach Out, I probably should orient to do, is down, here's Houma, Reach Out is over here, a little further to the southwest here. Reach Out is between the white lines down here along the Houma navigation now. And last thing, again, we are to be look at all the environmental assessment, environmental considerations that we need to in order to do this project correctly, and to account for all of the possible impacts we may have on everything I've talked about so far, and that has to be completed before we even consider it. So, this is the second lesson. The blue is the borrow in this one. So we got the borrow, borrow here, potential borrow, again, all very potential. We will be having additional conversations in the future. Once we get through the design process and we have a better picture of where this borrow and other things are going, we will have another conversation. So you can see the alignments down here, our public shipping and public in this one. And then we got the haul routes along that 315. And we're also still looking at this track that up here potentially that we would barge into Reach Out. So that's, like I said, I was of everything that we're planning to do in the coming years. And then things that are coming up next year, it's 2025. If you guys, if anyone here is interested in reading very long reports on Morganza to the Gulf, please feel free to visit our website. We also have some summaries on there if you need more information. Our email address is right here. If you ever have any comments, questions, please feel free to actually goes to me. It goes to my supervisor, Lacey, and a few other people in this room. So if you have any questions or concerns, anything you want to find out or bring up, please feel free to send us an email. We also have comment cards in the back here. If you want to take some of them with you and mail them to us later, it will be going to our public affairs, and then they will come to us, so we will see those, and we look forward to continuing this conversation together. That's about it.
At the moment, I don't see any questions or comments online. For those online, we do ask that you thank you for our records. And if you're here in the room, please make sure you stop at the sign-in table and sign the sign-in sheet so we know you were here. And that's also conveniently where the comment cards are. So please feel free to pick one up. Is there any questions or anything in the room? Seeing none, I'll open it up to those online. I'll go back into my computer to check the chat. But if anybody wants to come on mute right now to ask a question or anything while here, go check the chat. And if there's in the chat,
And we'll see around the next minutes if you want.
yeah, I'll keep the WebEx open in case we have any questions on there. So this, thank you for coming.